Hello everyone. Today I am painting this Batman The Dark Knight bust. This is a 3D printed model by Eastman. In the description below I have linked to the files so you can print it as well if you liked. This is the first model that I have ever printed and painted. So without further ado, let's get to the video. Alright, so I let my prints hang on the side so that way most of the resin can fall onto the bed and not be wasted. I have a wash and cure station where all my prints are cured. Obviously, if you don't have this, you can use alternate motives like use the sun, which is the cheapest, or buy an external UV lamp, which is actually pretty cheap compared to this. My Batman, oh man, that hole was on the other side of the printer, so I didn't see it until I pull it out, but I wasn't about to waste this print. In my opinion, I think that I had too much infill density, and that's probably why that huge hole came out. I checked the vat and there was no particles or anything inside, so I'm pretty sure that's probably why it broke. I had some holes in the back and on the bottom, but I don't know what happened. I think that there was just not enough infill. I mean, not enough space inside. All right, so here I got everything cured. I'm looking at it all together, kind of how it's gonna look. Still really trying to draw out a plan. What am I gonna do with this hole? I mean, what can you do, man? So I got some Mollypod standard at my local Hobby Lobby. If you ever used one of these before, you know that you cut this 50-50 and then you pretty much just smash them like Play-Doh until you get like a very even mix, until you don't see a permanent either one of the colors that are more stronger than the other. Just a nice smooth blend between the two. I overdid this probably. I did it for longer just because I wanted to make sure that I did it right, and then I just went ahead and started packing. To be honest, it's the first time that I use this, so I didn't know what to expect. But I wasn't about to, reprint this because it was a lot of resin. At least for me personally, it was my first big print. Alright, so I'm just smoothing it out little by little. Using a little bit of water, kind of give it a little bit of that shape in there. Just trying to draw out the logo a little bit, using the blunt side of my brush. This is a cheap brush that I bought at Walmart. Fairly inexpensive. I don't mind throwing this away after I'm done with it. Alright, so now I'm plugging in the holes that, to be honest, I think they could have been a little bit bigger, or maybe just the infill. I still think that I put too much infill. I had it at 20%, which I think that's why I had that big misprint. Alright, so now the fun part, meaning the not so fun part that everybody hates, which is sanding all those support marks and sanding all those layer lines. Pretty much this was the most time consuming thing and this is obviously sped up. Trust me, this took a lot longer, at least for me, than I would like to admit. But at the end, it's definitely all worth it. I know in the car world, we always said, if you want a good paint job, you have to have a good prep, and I believe that to be true with pretty much anything, especially models. Alright, so now I'm just starting to give it that little bit of shape. There are some obvious lines where I didn't uh, do that great of a job with the brush or with my fingers, so it's always good to have one of these rotary tools. If not, I know that flexible files can do the job just as well. I know plenty of people that's what they use, and they get great results. I just used this because it was what I had in hand. Here you can see that I'm using a toothbrush, and just this is not a toothbrush that I would ever personally use. I just use this for modeling. It has a rubber side to it, which it's flexible enough where I can use the 400 and the 600 grit sandpapers to carve into those crevices to not changing as much, because I felt with the rotary tool I was altering the design more than I would want to, because there was some huge layer lines that I just didn't want to do by hand. And in here you can see that on the forehead there is like a bubble that I don't know if you can see it on camera, but in person was actually very prominent, that I didn't see until I actually started getting the model wet and seeing those layer lines. It really stood out. Alright, so now that I got everything sanded, I primed the base. I didn't take a video of this because I did it outside and it's really cold outside, and I just brought it in to make sure it settled properly. Now I'm using Vallejo Brown. I already put a very light coat of brown just to test out the color, see if that's what I really wanted to go with, and just use some reducer and just spray on. As you can see, there are layer lines on this base. I also didn't want to reprint this because I know exactly what happened with this. It was an accident. My printer sits above a washing machine, and by accident somebody else started to use the washing machine while it was printing, so there was a lot of layer lines, especially on the bottom. Now after the clothes stopped washing, then you can tell in the print that when the washer was on and where it wasn't, but things happen. I didn't want to reprint this again. I didn't want to go through that much resin again, and the time that it took to print, This one I think took like 6 hours to print. And then I'm going in with a red to give it a wash on it. I know bricks have a red tint to it. It's primarily red, but they also have a brown undertone, so this is what I decided to do with. Now, of course, I'm pretty new to this, so this is very experimental. Alright, and I set aside the base and just let it to dry, and I'm starting over with Batman and giving him a skin tone that I mixed up with white, yellow, blue, and red. When I was spraying this on, I thought for him in this bust, I thought it was too bright of a color. And so I'm just throwing in the base coats right now. I'm doing black. I sealed the face, so that color won't change, and if I get overspray, I can just wipe it off. All right, so I'm going in and just doing the line work for the black, which to be honest, it isn't much. So that's why I decided to do the black first. On the side, I wanted to keep a faded blend of black to the gray. I don't know how to do that much with the airbrush. I don't have that much experience with it, so I just decided to leave it like that. Now I'm taking off the masking for the face. I know I already said that I sealed it, but I put masking on top of it just to double make sure that I didn't get anything on any other black onto the face. Now of course I put way too much masking on, so it basically splashed all over, which is fine. I can go in with a brush later and paint on. It's just these Vallejo black. I got some of the masking inside the mouth, which was a little bit soft still, so it was being a little bit of a pain to get out. But even though it took me a while to get this out, trust me, I would do it this way again any other time, because I saved so much time on painting and repainting. Right, so now that I looked at everything, how it's gonna look, I filled in the spots where that masking took off the black, and just going in again with, like I said, that really cheap brush, and just filling in spots with black. Alright, so now just filling in a little bit of the spots of black that I missed. Now I'm checking everything, make sure that I still like how it looks. I did fill up the white on the teeth and on the eyes. To be honest, I used the white that was too bright. Should have used something more. I mixed a little bit of red with the skin tone to do the lips, and this was my first mistake. I put in way too much red, and when the paint was wet, I didn't notice it as much when I was painting it, but once it dried, I could definitely see it. Now, I took that same red and just started painting in the blood marks on his face. All right, so I wanted to give it more of a tan look, so I used some brown and tried to dry brushed a little bit over the edge of the mask because I wanted to give him a dirty look of a night that he spent fighting. I like where this was going, but I wanted to give it a lot more dirtier of a look. So I came out with the airbrush again and I started bursting black, and I think this was my second biggest mistake, was to use too high of a pressure. I sprayed it onto the cowl and on the mask and then used the overspray as that dirt, but it just was too much of a pressure and it oversaturated it way too much. But I wanted to finish it and call this my first statue. That way in the future I could reference it. And here it is all together. I want to use this as a reference point. In a year, I'm gonna do this again. I'm gonna look back at it and compare and contrast, you know, how far have I come in a year. Thank you for watching this video and follow for more.